Hello, MouseHunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday. Today is August 5, 2022. I'm trying to read the calendar. Hello, everybody in the chat. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you happen to be joining us today. Oh, many hunters in the chat. 100 hunters joining us. Well, hello, everybody. Aaron saying morning all. Shotgun Jack. Howdy, howdy, right back at you there. Thorsten, Tim, Analysis. Oh, Kind, Final Heart, hello. Matt, Screen Space. Hello, good morning to you. Jonathan, Diamond, hunting the Mythweaver. Malone can't wait to hear Dave say maps launch on Monday, eh? Well, you'll have to wait a little bit to hear me say that, and I don't know if that would be the right day of the week when the day finally comes. KDM, good morning to you as well. Raised Mort, good morning. Started playing the game 5-6 years ago. Well, thanks for playing. Hopefully you've been having a good time for 5-6 years. And good morning, everybody else in the chat as well. Today we thought we'd get some initial impressions, feedback on the Folklore Forest and the 3 areas that came out. As well, give a little bit of a look at some of the things we're working on behind the scenes as well. We've been busy kind of collating a lot of the player feedback, making some notes. As we often do, we kind of pace the treasure maps to come out after the initial release. It's a great time to spend a few weeks collecting feedback, see how players are going through things, see what the sentiment is, especially after a little bit of time has passed, to be able to sink your teeth into it a bit. It's a great time. Maybe there's something, I wish I could get a little bit more of this. Hey, that's a great thing to maybe put in as a treasure map reward. We have a list of things that we would like to add time to add before release. So it's nice we can kind of bundle those in the treasure map, knowing like, don't worry, they got kind of, earmarked for addition to the game a little bit later without them being forgotten about. A lot of kind of what we would call it nice to haves, if you will. Nice to have, but certainly not needed on release day. Michelle, hello to you as well. Saying hi, Dave. Math says, greetings, Dave, from the Math Weaver here in England. Maybe putting those math skills to use to figure out the best way to track down the Myth Weaver, eh? Send more DLU, says Catherine. Good morning. Well, good morning to you. I'll do my best. A DLU for everybody in the chat. Sally Sunshine saying, I love the Folklore Forest. Great to hear. KDM, the HUD is a little packed with too much info, most of which are too small of a font. All right, that's kind of good to know as well. There's a little bit to fit in there. Tried our best to convey things with scenery and icons the best we could. Might be a nice segue to here, and just kind of collating feedback, work on small tweaks, quality of life improvements. Like I said, we've been kind of jotting down a lot of notes, looking to get a few more as well here on Feedback Friday and in the weeks to come, and kind of know what we want to kind of do little small tweaks, no dramatic overhauls or anything like that, but just, maybe something needs a little bit of polish or needs a little fine tuning. Shooting Star, I think everyone is hyped for the release date of Folklore Forest maps. Maybe coming maybe a little bit later on. Diamond, you want ultimate charms and bait keep in the treasure maps. Those might be, considering the difficulty of some of the mice in the areas, those might be a little bit above and beyond rewards for how difficult the maps would be. Aaron says, I have to counter that, say, I love the HUD. I love that you guys are making them more detailed with more information. That's a careful balance act, and it's definitely tricky to get it to a point where everybody's happy. We definitely try to make them a little bit more scenic and immersive, trying to create those feelings of, hey, I'm here, right? More of a game, and kind of telling a little bit of a narrative or story, feeling like you kind of get a sense of what you're doing in the world, as best we can, while still remaining true to the identity of the game. Is, you click a button once every 15 minutes. You check on it throughout the day. MouseHunt, definitely, it's kind of the wrong direction to go. Like, I sit down and I play it like I would play kind of a game where you're kind of in character and you're running around an open world, right? So there's always a creative challenge in the balance to get right there of you digest information and yet you can still be visually entertained at the same time. Catherine, Prologue Pond is a bit of a bottleneck. Stuff from there in the maps would be grand. Yeah, it's interesting too to kind of see how feedback evolves over the coming weeks as we get closer to maps coming out as well. It was interesting while we're playtesting things that it kind of has a bit of a different feel as you get those upgrades unlocked. At first, kind of the pond felt a little bit challenging, and then I got some upgrades, and then the farm kind of felt challenging, and then I got some upgrades, and it went back to the pond feeling challenging. So it'll be interesting to see the overall journey in the weeks to come. Sally saying I love the HUD as well. But I'll make chums smashable, so if someone overcrafts on mobile with the max button, they can cover their pond pennies. That's kind of an interesting suggestion as well to maybe play into some potential. See, we had reservations against that in case we want to put chums in map and chum in the map rewards at all, because then technically, you could get pennies and you could get all the upgrades without ever stepping foot in the Folklore Forest. So, there's some challenges there. Not everything can be kind of a refundable transaction. Similar with toothlets. By Fulmina's toothlets, you can't put them back together into a tooth, and that lets toothlets be more accessible than the teeth themselves, if that makes sense. Matt's a general store item in the pond for pennies. You can buy mulch with crop coins, thinking ahead once the upgrades are finished. Yeah, that was kind of an interesting takeaway of the farm versus the pond. The pond is almost just perfect. It's just wrapped up with a neat little bow where you just don't get too many pennies because buy chum with it, and while you're using your chum, you don't get pennies. So everything just kind of takes care of itself. Everything's wrapped up in a neat little package. But definitely the farm. Once you have all the upgrades, the coins keep coming on in. And we had some things during playtesting of how you could leverage your coins afterwards. But ultimately, we wanted to kind of see what the players' suggestions were, and how hunters go through it as a whole before making any concrete decisions. So we're definitely kind of keeping tabs on all of that, and hopefully we can add a new use for coins with maps. That said, it'll be a little bit before everybody gets all their upgrades built for the farm. So probably not a huge demand at least in the short term. Karen, click your horn, Dave. I must be a little bit behind in the chat. I am writing an encyclopedia as we speak. When I have 12 hunts remaining, 11 now, volume 3 coming along. Rookie Sheep, what's stopping hunters from leaving after getting the 2 traps? The upgrades cost more than the traps. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, it'll be interesting again, kind of see feedback as players kind of get their bearings a little bit and sink their teeth into it. But it's very intentional of kind of the quills being at a point where you're starting to choose: do I want traps? Do I want quills? And even just if all goes according to plan, this is kind of chapter 1 of the forest. You're just at the table of contents, and so there's more to come after this. And it might be a little bit of context after Floating Islands being kind of this much larger epic area that involved all the power types and being there for quite some time. We're already working on kind of what follows up the Folklore Forest. So, when you think back to the Fungal Cavern, it wasn't like I set up camp and I'm here for 2 years. That's maybe a little bit more in line with the identity of this first introductory chapter of the Folklore Forest might feel like. AIG, you are back after 6-year break. What a change. Some credit for the dev. Well, glad to have you back. Hope you're having fun. Alvin, the pond is very magic essence intensive. Well, you can kind of use as much or as little as you like. Definitely the Stormy Clam and Bear definitely feels like, yeah, I'm using my magic essence there. Feels very much like other opportunities where you're crafting cheese and it's like, well, it took me a while to get here. Yeah, definitely makes sense. I'm going to spend it there. But ultimately it's up to you how you want to manage those resources, where you want to put them to use. Whether you want to think, well, maybe I'll take some of my magic essence and sell it on the market, or maybe I'll buy some off the market to use here. Every player is going to have a different decision to make there, and hopefully different players make different choices, but they both feel like they were the correct decisions for them. Yeah, mulch for coins versus seeds would be great. The pond is by far the grindiest and slowest area, you would say, but so far I don't feel like it's super bad. Yeah, fair enough. I think too that's kind of, you're getting the sentiment of what it was like during early playtesting. The pond for a while is where we spent the most of our time. We were just fishing nonstop. And then as the upgrades started to roll, and actually kind of during playtesting, we ended up changing the order of upgrades a little bit and kind of tuning things. And it gets into a nice spot where, whoa, I barely need to step foot in the pond. There reaches this kind of critical mass where Stormy Clam and Bear doesn't feel all that difficult to obtain anymore, and then the kind of the snowball effect starts happening. So, again, we'll be kind of keeping a close eye on feedback in the weeks to come. Farm upgrade 5, KDM says, feels like an oversight. Adding magic essence to the plant only increases the mulch output from 15 to 20. Yeah, well, every little bit helps, right? Everything adds up. Definitely some are more impactful than others. Some have like exponential increases, whereas everything else is about kind of getting some sustainability. And it'll be kind of interesting to see sentiments and feedback that we get later on once players have more upgrades to kind of get that feeling of sustainability. You know, even the hyper pollinator at first, I'm like, you know, it's just 5 seeds. I have plenty of seeds, right? But it all adds up to this kind of snowball effect of kind of once you have everything going, you start to spend more and more time at the table and less time at the farm and the pond. Sally, you're currently writing as well. You're at Encyclopedia 1 with 15 hunts left. Your highest encyclopedia is a 14. Best of luck. Nathan, I like that the traps are affordable and that the upgrades are the stretch goal. I think the upgrades would feel better if had something better to sink the resources into. Yeah, definitely fair enough. I mean, that's kind of feedback we took from other areas, you know, floating islands. Kind of a big piece of feedback there is, you know, traps maybe not as stretch goals, whereas all those tier 2 traps that you're in the floating islands, it was kind of seen, well, not everyone's going to get those. Those are kind of above and beyond. And even as we approach future areas, sort of with the assumption, well, not everyone's going to have those tier 2 traps. And so when we were doing our play testing and, you know, coming up with the difficulty levels of mice, was just not taking those traps or seeing those traps as above and beyond. But kind of the feedback that we took into the reward structure of the Folklore Forest was to kind of avoid traps as stretch goals. It should be more something that realistically everyone can kind of set their mind to it. You can obtain that in kind of a reasonable amount of time before you're ready to move on to whatever comes next. Ashley, gold values seem kind of low for an Archduke content. Valor Rift has capped cash you get, and it says higher floors when books done on the table. Be better, could get a little bit more gold. You know, again, kind of early days. It's difficult to kind of get that journey feeling right. But as you get the upgrades, remember, you're going to spend less and less time at the farm and pond, more and more time at the table. So kind of everything's, especially because some of the upgrades are exponential, right? Something doubles and then doubles again and then it doubles again. As you can imagine, it starts to snowball as you get those upgrades going. And before you know it, you're just constantly writing. And so, you know, it's kind of kept in mind that while you're going through the upgrade path, some of kind of the points in gold were set with the assumption that you have all the upgrades, because that's sort of the rest state, if that makes sense, if I can use that term. That's sort of where you end up settling at with all the upgrades, and okay, you've unlocked the full earning potential. But that said, you know, every area has different identities. Some are going to be better for gold, some are going to be better for points. I get the impression that this first chapter, the Folklore Forest, is kind of pretty good for points once you get all set up and you get going. Dustin feels really weird that one of the areas uses coins to progress within itself, using pond pennies to make chum. You prefer the way the farm works where they're all separate. Yeah, you know, fair enough. But I think, too, that was kind of the intention. So it kind of seems like we hit the mark there, where every area feels different, right? Like the farm and the pond aren't just reskinned versions of themselves. They're different areas with different mechanics, different feels, different strategies. And different kind of learning curve to it as well. Whereas, you know, the pond, you make different choices. You have to learn how to best manage my resources at the pond. That very became the identity of the pond. It's kind of active resource management is its strong identity. Whereas the farm is a nice, predictable, linear journey that you're going down. I'm growing plants so I can get something to grow better plants and just repeat that ad nauseum and kind of get some upgrades to speed it up along the way. So, you know, that was very much the intention there, was to have the areas feel different. You know, what's the point of having 3 areas if they all feel the exact same? You may as well just have one area that you spend twice as long in. You know, so definitely wanted the farm and the pond to feel like they were completely different, but all part of a bigger story. That might be an okay segue as well to kind of, you know, take a look at some of the early impression feedback. Some of the things that we have on the work, mostly UI tasks or UI tweaks to get started. A lot of kind of day one impressions. It's just great. No matter how much play testing we do, you know, you grab 5 people and you go through and you play the area for a couple weeks straight even, and okay, great, you've logged a few hundred hours of game time. But as soon as you throw 50,000 people at it, within minutes you instantly have eclipsed the play time of any sort of play testing you could do ahead of time. So it was just great to be frantically writing down those early impressions. And a lot of these kind of, for the first 2 areas here, just some day one impressions of interface and how the HUDs were laid out. A couple takeaways we had there to change or add a tooltip maybe to that progress bar on it's not really a progress bar, an indicator bar for how many pests you have going. Help reinforce, hey, the pests are actually a good thing. You do want to kind of hunt for them, even though they're called pests. How many coins they drop, kind of, help future players learn, hey, these are good. This is how you encounter them, and really is how you get some crop coins going. As well as mobile, changing that. You always struggle to know exactly what to call that. You might call it the camp HUD button, the camp task button, whatever you want to call it. It'd be a little bit more contextual. Maybe have it switch and say, hey, this is how many hunts you have left, and if you make sure you come back 8 catches from now, because you're gonna be able to harvest a plant. And obviously still have it saved when you have a harvest available, and what have you as well. It was an interesting takeaway from playtesting, because we don't do a whole lot of playtesting at 15-minute increments for obvious reasons. It would take us months to be able to playtest an area. So typically we're going through it very, very quick. You don't have to wait to sound the horn. But it's hard to have perspective of I remember I just planted plants because I did it 30 seconds ago versus I planted plants 3 hours ago, and I'm coming back, I'm just launching the game, I can't quite remember where I was, right? Because it's a little bit slower pace, and a lot of light bulb moments I think happened there. Kyle, it would take a really long time to get the traps without the upgrades. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely intentional or intended that you should have to get some upgrades to start to get in striking distance of when you feel like, okay, thousands of Nobel prizes. When does that start to feel like a little bit more obtainable? And definitely there's this snowball effect. Whereas kind of as you get those upgrades, your ability to earn those Nobel prizes just keeps going up. Hobbles, you do feel like you keep switching between areas thinking, I should go here for this instead, and bouncing back and forth to get the Nobel prizes for the upgrades. Yeah, hopefully that's kind of part of the fun, especially in the early days. You do a lot of moving around, and just I feel like that's typical core MouseHunt identity is as you achieve goals, your next goals take a little bit longer than the goals before them, right? So I think as the weeks go by, you'll end up spending a longer time in each area and kind of moving around less. But to me, at least, that feels like a great cadence to have. When something's brand new and you're just kind of sinking your teeth into it and you're taking it all in, it's great to be moving around a lot and constantly kind of switching up and getting it's like a little buffet. You're getting a little bit of everything on the plate. But then as kind of the weeks go by, I was like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing now, and I'm ready to settle in for some long hauls. Heck, W in the chat saying, can we get an Ultimate Charm Bait Keep Charm combination so people get more mad? I don't think that combination would be in the cards anytime soon. That sounds quite powerful. Matthew, maybe you missed something. All plants in the farm label themselves as max 200 centimeters. They're plants for taller, shorter plants. No, they're all the same, but you can speed up their growth by using condensed creativity. Free Schmidt says, with your first impressions, the mice are super cute. The HUD seems really well designed to me. Holy fridolies, this is going to take a while to get done, which is good because you finish most other stuff. Yeah, keep in mind, keep those upgrades going. So it's very important, you don't park your keister at the farm for a couple weeks and just kind of go without ever stepping foot in the pond or the table. You want to get those upgrades going. And so things will naturally push you in that direction. Well, now you need some Nobel prizes, so you gotta kind of get to the table. Start experiencing it all, and because the sooner you get those upgrades going at the farm, the sooner your kind of farming potential goes up. Same for the pond. Dustin has a recommendation for mobile when crafting Brainstorm Chum. It doesn't tell you how many pond pennies you have in your inventory. Make it annoying to go back and forth to see how many you have. That is a great suggestion as well. Whenever you're buying something, it's good to know how much you have in your wallet. Yeah, Jonathan liking the change for the mobile HUD button. Spigar saying the Super Brie mouse being one more of a hindrance seems like an oversight. Keep in mind the encounter rate of that locus is static. So no matter what you do, you're going to get the same encounter rate for it. So just Super Brie adding a new mouse to the pool that drops lots of seeds doesn't mean you get the locus any less. So for the most part, if I bring out the good stuff happens is our intention. 99% of the time, I'd say. So if it's not working that way, that wouldn't be intended. Talking about the Crazed Cultivator. Yeah, the Crazed Cultivator comes out but it doesn't affect the encounter rate of the locust at all. So you kind of get a consistent encounter rate against that mouse, which drops a little papyrus. It's overall a good catch. It's time to sound my horn. In a Myth Weaver, my story is extended. Maybe no, sounding the horn is a nice reminder to switch scenes here now and then. So Prologue Pond, again, kind of early impressions, feedback from players, a lot of it around seeing, how was the interface and the heads-up display? What questions came up, what confusion came out, where did kind of some of the learning curve exist? And, so again, this is kind of based on those day one impressions here, but improving that camp button in the mobile app to be more contextual, let you know, hey, am I currently using Brainstorm Chum? Yes or no? What am I currently collecting? How much of that do I have? What's my current goal? Little reminder. And again, it just kind of comes out when you're playtesting. It's awfully quick. And then when you're going 15 minutes at a time, it's like, wait, did I have my Brainstorm Chum active or not? I don't know. I clicked that button like 2 hours ago. I can't remember which way it's going. As well as, there's a blank spot on the HUD down in the corner. It just seems so obvious hindsight, but, on the farm, that shows you how much growth you get per catch. In the table, it shows you how many words you get per catch. Certainly makes sense in the pond. It may as well show how many of that resource you're going to get per catch, and also help kind of newer players discover, well, what type of loot can drop right now. Feels very similar to the floating islands with the mice can drop indicator on the heads-up display. Chong, will new map have a chest reward that help in speeding up the upgrades? Probably not directly. No, typically upgrades are things that we like players to have to earn for themselves. So maps are a shared experience. They're also kind of a co-op thing. You do them with other players. And so kind of typically the things that go in maps have to be things that feel a little bit more comfortable to be tradable. And crop coins and pond pennies certainly do not fit that identity at all. So there wouldn't be coins, there wouldn't be pennies, there wouldn't be Nobel prizes. Those are the things that are sort of a measure of your own success in the area, but certainly things to help you earn those items, but it's kind of things you still have to use on a hunt-by-hunt basis. Matt, you try too much to match your derby in the table with ink and papyrus. You should craft and go for books, rinse and repeat. Yeah, absolutely. You should kind of always be writing. It's kind of feedback we took from the floating islands. It seemed well received that instead of just parking my butt at the launch pad and just collecting curd mindlessly for days on end, it feels a lot more fun to just go to an island and pick one that has curd. Awesome. Now I'm kind of doing the fun part. I get to make some choice and kind of things get to mix up and feel fresh now and then. The journey changes as you go. It doesn't feel like one long, monotonous march forward. It's a more varied experience. So definitely it was intentional. Just always be writing a book, even if it's with Gouda, and you'll kind of be getting a little bit more curd, get that first draft derby going, and then you can start to pretty well sustain your second draft. If anything, the first draft is a little feedback mechanism to know, like, you probably didn't manage your resources right if you have to be using first draft. You can kind of sustain your second. Mara says, as a slow player, I really like the pace of all the new locations. You started at the farm to get the 3 first upgrades, and you got to the pond and calmly got those 3 upgrades. Yeah, I think I tackled it in the same way you did, Mara. Got to kind of get those first 3 upgrades. And then, too, it kind of felt great. Hopefully it was a nice feedback signal as well. Once you start to see, well, now I need Nobel prizes for some of these upgrades. So now, pretty well, I have to go to the pond. I have to move forward, kind of mix up the journey as well. Karen, there's a couple of trap skin crafting recipes visible on the mobile app, but not using browser, like the polluted chrome monster bot skin. It's because the skin piece is no longer dropping in the game Trapsmith. Maybe submit a bug report. Might be the best avenue to go through if kind of something's not working correctly or working differently on mobile than browser. I mean, every now and then that's intentional if it's kind of interface wise, because mobile has a small screen, browser has a large one. Sometimes we have to reduce the amount of information, but if different content is available on mobile and browser, it probably feels like it's not working as intended. Boone, you find yourself missing using condensed creativity on your Stormy from time to time. Any chance the HUD could improve in that sense? Yeah, it's tricky. Just sometimes just taking your time and knowing, hey, even sometimes I like to disarm my bait and make that the last thing I do. It almost feels like kind of that's the ready up moment. I'm ready to go and is arming my bait. That actually is one piece of feedback I kind of forgot to include here with the pond was the ability to activate chum while you have bait disarmed. That even kind of came up while we were playtesting, and it was a bit of a volatile change. We didn't really want to make it in the last week before it was going to launch because it might affect underlying things. It might cause side effects. And when you're testing, if it's a volatile change, well, if we change this, I have to test everything all over again. Maybe let's just wait and see if players ask for that as well. And sure enough, players are asking for that. So, that might help as well. We're going to have it so you can activate your brainstorm chum while you have bait disarmed so that you can get your condensed creativity going. You can get your brainstorm chum going and then arm your stormy clan barons. Like, cool, I'm ready to farm ink. Or if you're looking to get pennies, cool, like, leave the brainstorm chum off and get the condensed creativity. But definitely it's kind of something on you as the hunter. You have to kind of like, am I all set? Am I doing everything right? What am I trying to accomplish? What choices should I make to get the outcome that I'm looking for? Roy, you thought the pests were going to show up to eat your plants. Yeah, fair enough, Roy. And I think I was maybe kind of too late to change during playtesting, but maybe that wasn't the best word for those suite of characters. But even they're kind of illustrated with that identity as well, so it's sort of hard to change late in development. But they are showing up to eat your crops, right? Like you plant all these delicious crops and the locusts descend upon it because it's just irresistible. But they're not particularly challenging pests to get rid of, right? It's like you're stepping on an ant pretty much. So they show up because, hey, they want to eat your crops, but fortunately you have a very capable mousetrap to take care of that pest problem, a little pest control. But we kind of ran into that perception issue as well, where typically pest is something you want to keep away, right? Not something you want to invite. But that said, hey, mice and rodents can be considered pests as well, and we bait our traps to lure them into the trap. So you can almost, I guess, look at your farm as an elaborate trap. That's the bait, is the crops themselves. Sally says, I like that you can do a lot of smaller table runs to get your upgrades. You don't really have to get high up in the table, yeah. Camels asks, do some people already have the new traps? Off the top of my head, that is something I haven't even checked. Anecdotally, I haven't seen anybody with one. Let's see. Let's check it out. We're going to see today. Actually, we'll even go the last week. In the last 7 days, the most popular trap has been the Chrome School of Sharks, the Chrome Thought Obliterator, and the Slumbering Boulder trap. No surprises there. It might be tricky to tell this way because they'd have to actually hunt with it for it to show up here, and odds are you're not going to be using a physical or a shadow trap. Kyle says the problem is other people can take you on hunts. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of why we want you to be able to activate your brainstorm chum while you have your bait disarm. So that's kind of a great way to opt out of people taking you on hunts. Disarm your cheese. And so, like I said, that kind of came up. I see some praise in the chat. Gerald saying, yay for the chum toggle there. Yeah, absolutely. So now you're going to be able to turn on your brainstorm chum while you have your bait disarmed. So that should hopefully help. When you're changing phases, you're shifting from maybe you're collecting clams to now I want to hunt with Stormy Clan and Bear to collect ink. You can kind of disarm your cheese, turn on your condensed creativity, turn on your chum, get your charm equipped, pop an aura if you want to, do whatever else you want to do to ready up, and then bam, when you're ready, arm your cheese as the last step. Now you're eligible to hunt. Friends can take you, your trap check could trigger, etc. W, how did the Cthulhu end up in a small pond? Should be at the sea instead? We'll have to leave it up to everyone's imagination. Just how big are these mice? It's often a contentious issue. Hart says, please do not turn off condensed creativity automatically. The game doing things by itself trips you up more when you want to make the decision yourself. The only place that currently happens, this might be a good segue into the table as well. The only place that currently happens is when you're finished writing, because realistically, there's just no compelling reason why you'd want to be using your condensed creativity while you're not writing a book at the table of contents. Maybe, but I think the 99% use case out there is I'm not using it during that moment. So it just seemed like it's probably going to do a lot more good than harm to have that turn off. But I can understand as well. Like it kind of increases the learning curve. You have to learn. Oh, that's something that happens when I finish writing a book. You get the journal entry saying I've extinguished my condensed creativity. Just because it's really not very impactful to use it there. It's usually not a good choice. So it just kind of felt like a good quality of life to just preemptively turn it off. That said, something a little bit more awkward that we're not quite sure which direction to go in here is when you finish writing a book, your condensed creativity turns off. And for the most part, you don't want to be using it. Okay, so for the most part, that feels good. You're not, it's not going to waste. And hey, you switch back to whatever cheese you were using before you started writing a book, whatever that kind of preferred cheese is to be at a rest state. And, that felt pretty good, fairly lightweight, easy to maintain, hopefully simple to understand. But charms are in a bit of a weird spot there, especially when you bust out your final draft. I don't know about you, but I look through my inventory and I pull out the biggest, heaviest hitting charm I can muster. But then there's a little bit of worry in the back of my mind. What if I'm not around when I finish writing a book and I'm just going to be using up this relatively difficult to get charm and just be smacking around those mice that you get when you're not writing? So we're wondering if your charm should also disable. Now, it's a tough spot because there's a use case either way. Like say I'm just writing with second draft or I'm just collecting curd. Maybe I have party charms armed. Maybe I'm just, trying to get my party charms to upgrade into higher tiers. Snowball charms, trying to get those rolling up, and all of a sudden, game, stop disabling my charms. I'm trying to get them to roll up overnight. I'm just playing passively. So, there's a slippery slope to go down to, the whole kind of trap library that we sort of, was feeling the waters, or testing the waters a little bit with the floating islands to kind of see, okay, a little bit of trap management based on what's going on, and if something happens while you're away, what happens there. But it's a little bit of a slippery slope. It's a little bit tricky as well to kind of implement that and then maintain it for the foreseeable future. It starts to kind of lean into, well, should there be a more grand strategy when it comes to trap library? There's certainly plenty of other areas where you could utilize it as well. The warpath, you catch the warmonger and you kind of go back to wave one. Maybe you want your charm to change then as well. So it seems like it's kind of a larger problem than just this one case of it. Charm and base, save those toothlets. There you go, Dallas. That's in the chat. That's the perfect example of how it's a bit of a slippery slope, right? As soon as you kind of do one thing, it opens up the window to just a slew of other things. Well, why not this, and why not that, and why not this? So we're kind of mulling it over. We want to see what players think. Ultimately as well, one of the nice thing of splitting this up into 3 areas is if you are around and you're not going to be around for a little bit, you can just move to the pond or the farm and come back and finish your table run later. Maybe you're going to sleep for the day and there's like 2 hunts left on your book. But that said, hey, life comes up sometimes. Sometimes I'm away and I come back. I'm like, oh, right, I was writing the book and I finished. And now I'm back at the non-writing phase and I'm burning off charms and, toothlets could be burning and whatever else, Sally says if you just set it to disarm the cheese, that would solve the charm problem. Oh, Sally, that might be an interesting idea as well. Maybe give players the choice of when I finish writing, do you want your cheese to disarm or no? And then hopefully that doesn't kind of open up that slippery slope problem of, well, what do you want to change? Because that gets a little hard to implement. That would be a little bit, biting off more than we can chew maybe right now. But something that's, hey, your bait already changes, just some sort of control to let you just turn it off entirely might help. KDM, you accidentally hunted with Super Brie when you didn't realize that your book was complete. Wasted an ultimate luck charm and your heart broke. Hopefully you have a little bit more of a stockpile of those. Amber asks, any chances of a save trap setup, kind of like floating islands? Well, that's what I was kind of getting at. I'm not quite sure we'd be able to go that complex with it. I don't know if we'd be able to kind of muscle the design space to get that working. And then as well, kind of just complicates things if we ever want to kind of make that more universal, right? It's kind of a different problem to solve. So I don't know, we're in a tough spot. Like no matter what we do, I feel like somebody wants it the other way. So it might be tricky. Aaron, right now you're jumping between Folklore Forest and the Valor Rift still. It's a pain in the browser to switch everything out when you move. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's been kind of in the idea bank backlog for a little bit. Some way just to kind of make changing your trap a little easier. But, kind of outside the scope of just some tweaks to the table of contents specifically. Another Mythweaver back to back. We're rolling now. 12 hunts remaining, volume 4. Go, go, go. Final Heart, how do the silver and the gold quill stack additive or multiplicative? You know what? I'm not going to tempt fate. I'm pretty sure I know how they work. But because I'm not looking at it, and misinformation is like so easy to spread, and I do my fair share of spreading that from time to time on Feedback Friday, I will not misspeak there. But I should definitely kind of look that. I want to look right at the code just to make sure I am not misspeaking. I am not misremembering whatsoever. No chance of doing that. Mar, is planting parable papyrus in 3 fields to attract the locust, then break off replanting to get your ingredients back, then replanting instead of using the mechanism, or is it cheating? You're certainly open to do that if you like. Something we're doing in playtesting as well, if you're really focused in on coins. But oh boy, do you sacrifice a lot of papyrus if you're constantly uprooting your papyrus plants. But, that's a choice you can make, right? Like, ultimately, kind of things are there. The world exists in a certain state, and it's about every hunter deciding what they want to do to navigate that world to achieve the goal that they're currently most interested in. So if you say, I want crop coins and screw that papyrus, I sure don't need papyrus, then, go for it. Nathan asks, is there already an auto-disarm cheese somewhere else? You think it's after going to Seasonal Garden? There are a few peppered in and amongst there. I believe Checkmate Cheese will take itself off your trap because it's kind of hard to get and it has absolutely no use in the Seasonal Garden. So, if I'm remembering correctly there. Over asking how do the quill, also asking how the quills work there. You don't seem to need the silver quill to get the gold quill. Do they give separate boosts? Are they multiplicative or additive? I don't want to misspeak there, but they work independently. And like all the upgrades, there's only one exception in the farm. You can do them in any order. Some are cost fewer resources than other upgrades. So kind of, usually you'll probably go in that order, but not always. I've always, the hyper pollinators was always this critical moment when I was playing through things where I had some decisions to make. Depending on how my first confrontation against the Mythweaver went. If I went through it and I got lucky and I wrote a pretty good encyclopedia, I had some interesting choices to make. If I got a little less lucky and I got to go back to the farm, then it felt good to hit that hyper pollinator button to at least kind of get my seeds going up a little bit better. Booter, what do you think of a suggestion to, during maintenance, disarm cheese? Love it. Unfortunately, we just don't have the technical means to do it. So, again, in the idea bank, along with a few hundred other really good ideas, are some mechanism to kind of better smooth out the friction of when maintenance occurs. And you can't get in there to change your trap setup and stuff is happening, but for now, you just have to kind of bear with us. It is what it is, but we'd like things like a countdown timer of knowing, oh look, the maintenance is going to start in 5 minutes and 42 seconds, and then when maintenance occurs, some sort of flag in the game that would prevent anyone from going on a hunt until you come back up. Unfortunately, there's just no easy way we can snap our fingers and disarm everyone's bait. Just kind of for infrastructure purposes. A lot of the things in the game, just so that thousands of people can play simultaneously, are set up in a way where you need to edit everyone individually in one small transaction, and it's just not feasible to edit tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people all at once. Norm popping into the chat there to let everybody know the quills are multiplicative. All right, awesome. So you get your bonus that gets applied, and then the other one gets applied there on top of it. Thank you, Norm. I didn't want to misspeak. I was pretty sure that was how they worked. Is you get the 25% bonus, and then that gets 50%. There were some rounding things going on as well. I think that we pushed out, we kind of tweaked where some of the math rounding happened, especially with condensed creativity. When it says it doubles, and then you write words and it ends in an odd number, you're like, but doubles, it should be even, right? But it was just the way the rounding worked. You'd be one one more, one less word sometimes. Jonathan, the hyper pollinator seems completely unnecessary, though I did use Super Bee while hunting in the farm, but still way more seeds. That's why. Try hunting without Super Bee, and that hyper pollinator is now your best friend. And that's quite intentional, right? Like the upgrades aren't there as an instruction manual. You're not building furniture. You're not meant to do it like, well, the devs designed it in this way and I go through it in this order. No, there should be an interesting world and system in place, and you have to decide how you want to go about it, and that means not doing things sometimes. So based on your own resources and your approach, you might decide, I'm skipping hyperpollinator. Awesome, more power to you. That means you're throwing Super Brie at the farm rather than using Gouda. If you used Gouda, I'd imagine, no, I want the hyperpollinator. I need more seeds. I'm not getting as many seeds. So it just means different players are going to go through it in a different way. They're going to make different choices, but every player still feels their choice is right. That's what we refer to as depth. You want to create choices, and different players make different choices, but none of them are incorrect. There's no one single dominant way to do it. It's more about how your own personal preference, the resources you have available to you. Sri saying thanks for the confirmation, Normandy. Thanks, Norm, for popping in. Dave, you're catching all my myth weavers. Muhaha. They're loving me. No, I had some very unlucky runs to start. So, hey, what goes around comes around. It's definitely part of the identity of the area. That became very clear during playtesting, is just the way all the numbers are set up when you're writing encyclopedia. There's a lot of things that are awfully close to a coin flip. And, in the math world, that's what you call standard deviation, is kind of spread out. It's a very wide range of possible outcomes that can occur, and it's a wide amount of variance that can occur. And, typically that would make us pull on our collars a little bit because we don't like having too wide of a variance. But the cycle is so tight. It's such a short loop, especially when you get all the upgrades going. You're just writing books constantly by the end of it when you get the upgrades. So, even if you get a few unlucky encyclopedias in a row, the rewards are things that help you not have bad luck the next time. So it kind of mitigates that bad luck to make your next run a little bit better, especially when those quills unlock. Now, it's kind of, end game, but even if you were unlucky for months, which, shouldn't happen, but if you just never, ever wrote a good book ever, by the time you get that silver quill, it kicks in and be like, listen, you're going to start to write some good books now. You got a silver quill. And by the time you get the golden quills, you're just not going to write bad books anymore because now you got a gold quill. And so it's very intentional to kind of, mitigate that in the long term. But also, I don't know, when we're going through it, it's awfully fun just to quite never know where you're going to land because there's not a huge consequence to having, it's a few, you get fewer Nobel prizes, but, you'll get those on the next one. I think that was feedback we got from Valor Rift, was you kind of have to push all your chips into the table. It always feels like you're going all in when it's time to try. So, that has a lot more negative connotation when you don't quite reach the benchmark you were hoping to reach. That kind of, we kind of took that feedback to heart. Whereas this is a much shorter cycle. If it's like, well, if you didn't get to where you're hoping to on this encyclopedia run, you're going to be trying again pretty soon. So hopefully that identity kind of helps that out. Holo asking, is the soil and the pruning shears also multiplicative? That's a hard word to say for me. I still didn't say it right. Let's take a look here. Doubles. That one again, I don't know off the top of my head. In the pond, a lot of the doubling ones are you double a double. Like it's exponential math. So keep that in mind. Hey, those upgrades are awfully important because you get a snowball effect starting to go. And oh boy, I'm running long here. I thought it would be a short one. We should switch gears here a little bit to kind of what the next update is that we're working on. And that is treasure maps for Folklore Forest. And, as we often do with a new permanent area, a new permanent adventure like this, is, hey, we look to bundle a lot of small tweaks, additions, quality of life improvements, incorporate some player feedback. Again, pretty small stuff. We're not talking about massive overhauls because that might cause more harm than good, completely changing things. But just, sometimes things need a little bit of tuning. Maybe an interface needs some tweaking. Maybe a loot drop needs to, be 10% higher or something small. And so, we often like, hey, the maps come out a little bit later. It's a great time to address some of that feedback as well. And like I said earlier, it's an opportunity to put some things in the chest where, maybe it's a more natural way to increase some of the supply of resources. So we've been busy kind of collating a lot of feedback. I know we went over some of the day one impressions and feedback. But we've been reviewing a lot of the current ideas surrounding long-term usage of crop coins and Nobel prizes. We kind of play tested a few ideas during play testing as well, and ultimately, we were a little uncertain if that was the best decision, and so we wanted to kind of see how players tackle it, get some suggestions from players as well. So keep those coming in. New potential kind of end game items, and I use that like the end game of the table of contents, or like of these three areas. To kind of give a little bit more of a boost to the ink and the papyrus. Just kind of keep feeding that loop, the identity of it. The more time you spend there, the more time you spend at the table, and the less time you spend at the farm and the pond. As well as, brainstorming kind of some unstable type items, similar to the unstable Rift Core. That worked, I think reasonably well. We have rather positive feedback from the Valor Rift. Hey, what do I do with all these cores once I have everything? Cool. You make an unstable Rift Core, poke it, and there are things to be found in there. Yeah, KT, once you complete the upgrades, there's no use for crop coins and pond pennies. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very pertinent, or more important, that the crop coins have some usage. Like I said, during playtesting, we had a sync for them. Sort of once you're all done, this is what you do with your crop coins. But I don't know, it didn't quite feel fun. It just kind of felt like something you forgot about. You forgot to do it often. So we're hoping to maybe with a little bit more time kind of capture some lightning in a bottle. That said, the pennies, I love the pond. I can't sing the praises about just how clean the pond is, if I can use that term. Just the way the mechanics are all wrapped up. Hey, if I have too many pennies, you just stop hunting for them then. Don't hunt for pennies, right? And you just get ink instead, and you can always use ink. So the pennies are everything's just wrapped up with a neat little bow in the pond. I love it. But definitely the farm has crop coins. You just kind of keep getting them and you're not sure what to do with them. And eventually people will get to the point where Nobel prizes. Hey, what am I doing with those? As well as, hey, some new ways of obtaining some condensed creativity. So that'll help with, earning King's Crowns. Obviously, a lot of this kind of helps you get to the table of contents, kind of helps you continue to play the area more and more. And so, spending your Nobel prizes to get resources to help you get more Nobel prizes doesn't make perfect sense, but it might also help with some bonus goals, working on King's Crowns, or maybe you're finished the area and you want to farm an item to sell on the marketplace or give to a friend to help them if they haven't finished the area, or new hunters that are coming up and going through these three areas as well. Quirky Sparrow Dave, generally we have had trap upgrades corresponding to the trap types used in the area, but the forest that has changed. I'd argue the opposite, actually. I mean, there's been a bit of a mix, but more recently released areas, typically we like to give you traps that you're going to use in the next area. And as we've kind of hinted at, hey, we're looking to continue to add new areas to Folklore Forest, and you just got a physical and a shadow trap. So, I don't know, take it as a bit of a hint of what power type might come next. But, similarly to Fort Rocks, you get there and you can get some better traps to help you as you move forward. Or maybe I'm thinking of another area. Floating Islands, obviously a little bit of an exception because it literally used every single power type. But that's why the farm is tactical, because you can get a tactical trap from the Floating Islands. And the other things just kind of firming up as well. Norm chiming in here for the farm upgrades. The doubling, the pruning shear happens at the end. All right, so you get the base value, the 100 enriched soil, times 2 for the pruning shear. So fully upgraded magic plant gets you 600. Fantastic. Thank you, Norm. Sally, haha, you got my Myth Weaver this time. Well, we'll see in 1 minute. So, like I said here with maps, we're still combing through, collating a lot of feedback, doing some kind of experimentations and play testing. We're hoping to have treasure maps ready approximately around the end of September. So we'll have some time to enjoy treasure maps before the Gloomy Greenwood opens up again for a Halloween event. Yeah, Reaper's catching on there. Pond pennies are used to buy Brainstorm Chum and can be avoided by Arming Chum. Exactly. So if you have too many pennies, once you have all the upgrades, just buy as much chum as you can, click the button to turn on your Brainstorm Chum, and just don't turn it off after that. Basically, just keep on getting ink. so you can make better versions of Final Draft cheese and kind of keep writing encyclopedias and turn that brainstorm chum into ink, so the ink can turn into Nobel Prizes, and then ultimately the Nobel Prizes into stuff yet to come. Elam loving the pond, so peaceful and refreshing, sitting on the boat. Reaper, hate the pond. This is the duality of mouse hunters. Hate the pond because I need almost twice as many hunts compared to the farm. I think that's a very early game impression. It starts to flip, at least for me, when I really started the upgrades going. Some exponential math starts kicking in, and lo and behold, ooh, a bitter grammarian. You were right, Sally. You did get my Myth Weaver. And lo and behold, I started to just like pop into the pond for a few hunts and then bail. I was like, I have a lot of Stormy now. Awesome. Stormy definitely starts to feel a little bit more sustainable. It's never fully sustainable, obviously. You know, it's boss cheese, but you know, when you get all the upgrades going, you start to hunt with Stormy quite a bit. Mara, any hints on how much time we have to upgrade everything in peace before new locations are added? I like the metaphor, like some battle just unleashes upon the game with a new area coming out. You know, hey, we're about to enter event season, so kind of take that as a hint. But yeah, no concrete date. We'll let the ink dry on this release before we talk about when the next area is opening up. But definitely, you know, there might be a little bit of impression from Floating Islands was being a big epic area, using all the power types, and it was pretty well a game within a game, if you can think of it like that. There's enough going on in the Floating Islands that could be the whole game, and so, you know, it was set out to kind of have a lot to sink your teeth into and a lot to go through. But I think some of the feedback we had there of, hey, many small and medium-sized releases more often rather than super huge epic releases only every couple of years. So we're trying to kind of tune that balance, where maybe it's the smaller scope areas that come out with a little bit more regularity. Gavel asks, how about planting crop coins to grow condensed creativity in the future? Yeah, this is certainly a plausible idea. We're definitely kind of starting to look for ways to maybe add a few more sources of condensed creativity here and there. Chong asking, will the map happen around Halloween? Well, here, as I have up there, our goal is around the end of September. So, you know, again, not a firm release date. Please help spread the word here that is not, hey, devs got on stream and promised that maps will be out by the end of September. That's our goal. We're really trying, and we always do our best to keep you in the loop through Feedback Friday and other sources whenever we can to let you know how it's going, so you know what we're working on, and you know, that's our goal. Scrib says, am I fast or am I late? Welcome to the stream, Scrib. You're always right on time, Scrib. It's just things, you're right when you need to show up. Catherine says, I love stuff. Q says, the farm mice are too easy to a point you can hit min luck without charms or auras. You know, it's quite intentional. You know, again, kind of going back to those tier 2 traps in the Floating Islands are seen as above and beyond. So, you know, take that for what it is that, yo, if you went and got this insanely difficult trap to get, you are going to mop the floor with the mice for the foreseeable future. If you think about it the opposite, hey, I went and I got this, it's just supremely amazing trap, and I still miss mice a bunch of times. You know, that kind of feels frustrating. It's like, yo, you went out of your way and just got this way difficult thing to get. Bask in all of its glory. You can save your charms. You don't need an aura running. You get to just mop the floor with those farm mice. And, you know, if it feels too easy, just arm a different tactical trap. Go arm the Sphinx Wrath for a little bit, and you can feel the challenge if you want, but I bet you won't do that. You'll probably keep that trap arm because it feels good to be mopping the floor with the farm mice. So, you know, it's very intentional because those are above and beyond traps. You know, just like the other tier 2 Floating Islands trap, as areas come out that utilize those power types, you can expect the mice to probably be a little bit on the easier side if you went and put in all the extra effort to get all those jewels. Analysis asking, please tell me what the plugin does that Dave uses for the horn widget. I made that myself. That is a homebrew, handcrafted widget. Just because I forget to sound my horn during Feedback Friday a whole lot, so I thought it was a cute little idea, and we can keep an eye on on the highs and the lows of hunting for the 45 minutes to an hour of Feedback Friday. That's a good reminder. We're coming up on the hour mark here. Scroob asking if we can smash our cheeses to get some resources back. Sometimes you want to rebalance your cheeses, but you can't. If we do add something like that, it might not be in the short term. We want to kind of, it's important for maps to come out. It has some bearing on kind of what we put in maps. Knowing, hey, if we give you a cheese and you can smash it to get ingredients back, it might smash into an ingredient that we didn't want to put in maps. So we got to kind of wait to see what the cause and effect of everything is. Andrew, getting ink is killing you. We'll get a little stash built. Don't be shy to go to the table a little bit early and kind of get some upgrades going, because that's kind of key. Reaper, I'm loving mopping the floor with those locust mice. And the locust in particular is on the weaker side. It's a reward for setting up a very special circumstance. Initially, it was very difficult to catch, and then it started to sneak in some questions of like, well, maybe I don't want to get this mouse. It's too hard for me. And it just kind of felt backwards. Like, all right, I'm not going to grow papyrus because I want to avoid this mouse. But then how do I get papyrus? I don't know. It got messy in a hurry. All right, we should start wrapping things up here. Holy smokes, I'm just keep on going, don't I? All right, trivia for this week, courtesy of Dev Norm, who poured a lot of heart and soul into many a mouse description and many a characters here, along with the art team. Which Folklore Forest mouse has a Shakespearean quote? I'll share the anecdote. This is a favorite of Dev Norm's, burned in his mind, I think he said since grade 9 English class. 73 and 48 are incorrect answers. It is not Hans Christian Squeakerson. Some of these pun-filled names are awfully hard to say. I have a hard time just pronouncing more frequently used words. Diamond, it is not the Myth Weaver, no. Nathan says, perhaps if no smash option, allow for conversion in a shop, like 10-second draft to final. Yeah, maybe, I could see exchanging it at a slight loss. Might be a good idea for Halloween in terms of potions as well. Maybe some sort of conversion potion. There might be some similar ideas percolating for maps as well, but we'll see. We'll have to kind of wait and see how maps work out before we can kind of almost put the finishing touches on any final exchange rates of smashing things back into resources, because like I said, it has consequences on what we end up putting in treasure maps. Greenbeard is also incorrect. The Matriarch Gardener is incorrect. I sure hope I remember the answer to this. Kevin, you're oh so close, but I don't think that's spelled correctly, but we'll accept it. Maybe it's just missing the space. The melodramatic minnow is indeed correct. I didn't test this reward link. Uh-oh. Do we dare risk this? Hold on. We got to test the reward link. Norm, are you still watching? I'm going to send you a link because I don't have to be logged into Facebook anymore. Never mind. Cardboard Shark, Dev, as he goes by, had the absolutely scrumptious update of now you can claim Larry gifts without being on Facebook. Yes, the link works. The melodramatic minnow is indeed the correct answer. I think Kevin was the first in the chat there, unless I missed somebody. If I did, apologies. Oh, woe, oh, woeful, woeful, woeful day. And it goes on. I didn't have room to put the whole quote in there, but you can go load up the melodramatic minnow. Bonus marks here. This is just for the prestige of it. Sign into chat. Why aren't I signed in? All right, I'm signed in this window. Link in the chat for your clicking convenience. Bonus marks if you know which Shakespearean story or play or however you want to refer to it that quote is from. Scrib transcribing it or copy pasting at least. Oh woe, oh woeful, woeful, woeful day, most lamentable day, most woeful day that ever did I yet behold. I'm sure my delivery is quite off. It is not King Lear, it is not Hamlet. Yes, Lynn first in the chat, correct. Didn't quite finish the sentence. It says Romeo and Jewel, but we'll take it. Romeo and Juliet. We'll finish off the last syllable of her name. Yes, from Romeo and Juliet. And so I think Dev Norm snuck that into the description, said it has been burned in his mind since grade 9 English class, and always found it to just be an absolutely ridiculous sounding line, I guess. He just loves it. Romeo and Juliet is correct. You'll have to get a better Shakespearean actor than myself to deliver that line with proper emphasis and poise. I know. Reaper hoping that we get Ingenuity Grubs as gift of the day soon. I forget which gifts of the day that we did add. We did add a few, but off the top of my head, I forget which made the cut there. I wonder if it was Grubs, though. It wouldn't be pennies or coins. Any kind of like things that are tied to upgrade progression typically are kind of off the table in terms of free gifts, even treasure maps. Like the sigils and the secrets from the Valorif Tower. It's very much like, yo, you got to earn those yourself. It's very difficult to kind of find other avenues to get those. But you can certainly get things to help you get those. And Grubs help you get pennies and ink. So. Norm coming in hot with the answer. Seeds, grubs, and curds are possible gift of the day items. Bam, all right. My intuition was correct. But my always frequent anxiety over just saying something completely incorrect. I could be 100% certain of something and some part of my brain will say, but what if you're not, Dave? Seeds, grubs, and curds are a possible gift of the item. Andrew's saying that papyrus seeds are tomorrow's gift. Is that in fact true? Yes. Get your gift of the day base armed. And hey, remember when you wanted those farm mice to be more challenging? Because, well, guess what? If you've got that tier 2 tactical trap, get your gift of the day base on and mop the floor with those farm mice. That kind of sounds fun. If they're harder, you might not enjoy doing that. So, quite intentional. Michelle says, thanks, Dave. Have a great weekend. I think that is 90%, or thank you, Michelle, you as well. I bet you that's 90% her wishing me a good weekend and 10% going, Dave, it's been an hour and 5 minutes, and I'm going to take that as a reminder. If not, it served as one. Nicholas saying goodbye as well. Goodbye. Have a nice day, Dave. We should wrap things up indeed. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mouse Hunters. Sure enough, I had a instinct it would be a bit of a longer feedback Friday, and it sure was. Thank you for all the great feedback and suggestions. So far, I'm sure we'll probably even touch base again before the treasure map release comes out. Like I said, we're aiming for about the end of September. Definitely, that butts pretty close up against the Halloween event. So, I feel like it needs to kind of come out at least a couple weeks before the Halloween event will start. So we'll definitely be aiming for the end of September. And, if things are looking tight, we'll probably try to cut some features to make that timeline. But we'll keep you in the loop along the way. And hopefully we'll be able to kind of demo some of the things that we'll be working on behind the scenes, trying to incorporate some of the feedback, early impressions on the Folklore Forest as well. Kind of keep everybody in the loop as well, get some feedback as we go. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. Best of luck in the Folklore Forest. Happy hunting, happy writing. May inspiration strike with every movement of your quill. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you next time. It'll likely be Jacob joining you for an art stream, I would think, next week, but we'll see. I'm just looking for the button that ends the stream, and I can't find it. I can't talk and click at the same time. There it is. All right. Again, happy hunting. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next time, hunters.
Two. You're a trap, don't seem to mind it. You attract me, I'm a mouse, you're a cat. I don't seem to mind it. Soft and furry, oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back. You don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back. You don't seem to mind it, 'cause you're so cool. And just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. And just when you think you're safe, snap. Turns